You ever met someone who looked like they'd lost everything, but still carried a quiet strength in their eyes? That's Jack. A single dad, a quiet war veteran, and a man who never wanted trouble. If you're watching this, stay till the end, because this story isn't just about standing up to bullies, it's about what real power looks like. And by the time you reach the last moment, you'll realize why you should never underestimate a man who's been through hell and come back alive. So before we begin, hit that like button, subscribe, and let's dive in, because this is one story you'll feel in your heart. Jack lived in a small town on the edge of nowhere, the kind of place where everyone knew everyone. After losing his wife to cancer, he'd moved there with his 8-year-old son, Noah, hoping for a fresh start. He worked days at a local auto shop, fixing engines and staying quiet, never complaining. Most people liked him, but some saw his silence as weakness. A local biker gang, the Iron Serpents, often passed through town, roaring their engines and throwing their weight around. They loved intimidating locals. Their leader, a towering man with tattoos creeping up his neck named Viper, took special interest in Jack. Maybe it was because Jack didn't flinch when they mocked him. Maybe because he refused to play their game. Whatever it was, Viper saw Jack's calmness as a challenge, and he didn't like challenges. One afternoon, as Jack was closing up the shop, the bikers rolled in, kicking up dust. They demanded free service. Jack politely refused, saying he couldn't do that. The moment he did, Viper's smirk turned cold. He spat near Jack's boots. "You think you're better than us, soldier boy." Jack just wiped his hands on a rag and said quietly, "No, I just believe in earning what you get." The next few days turned into harassment, slashed tires, broken windows, cruel whispers. One day, they cornered him outside the diner where he was having breakfast with Noah. They grabbed his shirt, laughed in his face, and pushed him to the ground in front of his son. Noah cried out, trying to help his dad, but Jack only held his son's hand and said, "It's okay, buddy. Walk away." He took every hit, every shove, never fighting back. People started talking. Some called him a coward. Others pitied him. But what they didn't know was, Jack had promised his dying wife that he'd never let anger rule him again. "You've seen enough of war, Jack," she'd whispered in her hospital bed. "Promise me, no more violence. Not for you, not for Noah." And he had kept that promise. Until one night, when things went too far. Jack came home from work to find his small house trashed, windows broken, furniture overturned, and Noah's favorite toy, a wooden airplane, snapped in half. There was spray paint across the wall. "Vets don't belong here." Jack fell to his knees. For the first time in years, tears streamed down his face. He picked up the pieces of the little airplane and held them in his hands. That's when Noah, standing in the doorway, whispered, "Dad, are you gonna let them keep doing this?" Jack closed his eyes. His hands trembled, not with rage, but with decision. He reached into an old box under his bed. Inside lay a single cell phone. Dusty. Unused for years. There were only a few numbers saved on it. One of them was labeled, Colonel Mason. He took a deep breath, and made the call. "Jack, haven't heard your voice in a long time," came a rough voice on the other end. "Colonel," Jack said quietly. "I need a favor." The next morning, the Iron Serpents rolled into town again, laughing, loud, and untouchable. They parked their bikes in front of Jack's shop. But this time, Jack was waiting outside, calm as ever. "Look who's still standing," Viper sneered. "Didn't learn your lesson, huh?" Jack didn't reply. He just looked at his watch. A few seconds later, black SUVs rolled up the street, unmarked, tinted windows. The bikers froze. Out stepped several men in dark suits and tactical vests. Their movements were precise, disciplined. Military. Viper's smirk vanished. The man in front, Colonel Mason himself, approached Jack and saluted him. "Good to see you again, Major." Everyone around went silent. "Major." Jack just nodded. "Appreciate the quick response, sir." "Anything for you," Mason said, turning to the bikers. "You boys picked the wrong man to mess with. This man led the Ghost Recon unit. Saved more lives than you can count. And you thought he was a nobody." The bikers stood frozen as Mason's men began inspecting their bikes, noting serial numbers. It turned out half of them were stolen. Within minutes, local police, tipped off by federal contacts, arrived. The Iron Serpents were cuffed and taken away one by one. Viper tried to speak, but Jack simply looked at him and said, "Strength isn't about who can hit harder, it's about who can rise without breaking." When the dust settled, Jack knelt beside Noah. "It's over, buddy," he said softly. Noah smiled, hugging his dad tightly. "You didn't break your promise, did you?" Jack smiled faintly. "No, son. Sometimes, strength is knowing when to make the call." That night, the town gathered outside his shop, offering apologies and gratitude. People realized they had misjudged the quiet man who never bragged about his past. Jack didn't seek revenge, he sought justice the right way. Weeks later, he rebuilt the shop, repainted the walls, and hung a small wooden sign near the counter. It read, "Respect is earned, not taken."